let me thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. In particular, I am indebted to thank Sachidanandan sir for this opportunity. And I'm not going to go deep into the origin and development of Murugapatti as it has been the topic since yesterday. But the Tamil Kadavul Murugan is more than known as Subramanya Kartikeya Kumaraswamy in Andhra Pradesh. He is not called Murugan at all in Andhra Pradesh. That's what I would like to bring. Yeah, all these are Sanskrit words as such. This is where I want you to please focus on this. This symbol is from Indus Valley script. Dr. Ayanatha Mahadevan, who deciphers the Indus Valley script, calls this Murugu. He deciphers the word Murugu from this symbol, which means to decay. To decay. And he says it's a fierce spirit which was known in the times of Indus Valley civilization. This is according to Ayanatha Mahadevan. Okay. But where does this Murugu word come from? There are different origins. Murugu is a word almost found in many of the Dravidian language words. I can just go for it. Murugu, to rot, putrefy, become dirty, ruin. This is again in Kannada, Murukil, it is impurity, Muggu, to be musty or muddy. In Tulu, Murugin, to mold, Mugga, moldy. In Tamil, it is Muri, to be spoiled, perish, to be ruined. Again, Murugu, Nasinchu in Telugu. This verb, Murugu, if we can think of, as we all know, is a masculine singular form. So, that would have taken the suffix, the masculine suffix, Murugu plus an, could have formed, could have. This is a hypothesis. This is a hypothesis based on the Ayanatha Mahadevan's findings. So, if that is the Murugan, then how could he become so beautiful? That is the question. A fierce spirit which was making people afraid of. How could it turn into such beautiful and kind God? It could be this way. Since the Sangam literature, we know that Murugan is the ruler of Kurunji and all those things. So I'm not going deep into those things. But there is a time where we do not know. An amalgamation took place between Rudra and Shiva cult. The Shiva, who is described by the South Indians, right from Indus, I'm taking it right from Indus, the Pasupati. The Pasupati, there is an idol of Pasupati in Indus. That God who saves all the Pasus. Pasu is a being, any being. Pati is the one who rules over the beings. And that particular concept has got amalgamated with the Rudra of Rigveda. Rudra in Rigveda is a fierce god. He is blue in color, he is not red in color as our Shiva is. He is blue in color, he doesn't excuse anybody. As per Rigveda, Rudra is a fierce god. But Shiva is opposite. He is an entirely opposite person. These two amalgamated in some kind of time, which we could not even trace now. The Ridra Shiva cult. The same could have happened to this Muruga Skanda cult also. This is one. This is a kind of. I was asking many people about this, but I couldn't get more than this information. But what I would like to focus is whether this hypothesis is right or not. Let us not bother. Words do undergo semantic changes. As per the dictionary, when you see the meaning of Murugu in Tamil, it says Yajna, beauty, honey. It gives three different meanings: Yajna, beauty and honey. Yajna if we go to the older forms, later on the Yajna culture developed, but when you go to the ancient times, only ancestors were worshipped. The ancestors' worship could have turned into other religious terms. We cannot say no or yes to this particular matter. But what I am concentrating on is the period of Shatavahanas. This is actually my topic. Why I took up Airavata Mahadevan here is Airavata Mahadevan thinks about and says about the present what we call Kavadi system as Sata Vahana. Sata is, no, it is not 10 madam, it is the Kavadi stick, the stick Kavadi is Sata, and Vahana, there the Sata is a kind of pot with two rings which was used by people to take bhojana for Havish. So that was Shatavahana, and he says the dynasty of Shatavahana had come from that. And that is why I took up this Murgu and Shatavahanas here. But my presentation is, I am concentrating on this Shatavahana period. Let me just introduce about Shatavahanas in one single line. They were vassals of Mauryan country, and after the death of Ashoka in 231 BC, they proclaimed themselves as a special empire. So this is their empire. And this Dakshinapatha, situated between Godavari and Krishna, mainly, please focus yourself on the Nagarjuna Konda, a particular spot, which is a famous historical spot. We got lot many of inscriptions there. Those inscriptions are of my interest and of our interest rather, because they talk about Kartikeya much. There, in that inscription, we find about a particular word, Eleshwaram. The name Eleshwaram, as per Dr. Sarkis, thinks that God was called so since it was probably installed by a person named Eli. It is quite likely that the great ruler Elika Sri, that is Eli Ahawalla Sri, who was the first reviver of Brahmanism as well as Sanskrit in the south, was also the founder of an Ishvara temple at this place, and the shrine was so dedicated by him, gained the name Eleshwara, and the village around in course of time. So, why are we interested in this particular inscription? This is the inscription. This is mainly because this is Sarva Deva Divasa. The Sarva Deva Divasa of Shatavahana times particularly is meant for four: Shiva, Devi, Kumara, or Kartikeya, and Brahma. These were the four gods rather, who were worshipped more in that time. Here he says there was one Mr. Annike who was a, let me just omit all those things. He, a devout worshipper of God Kartikeya or Kumara, the wielder of the terrible spear, so much so that the erection of Shiva temple in question was attributed to the grace of favor of Kartikeya. In those days, this is the most important point I would like to stress upon. The Shatavahanas erected many Shiva temples among the belts of Krishna and Godavari. But every temple was more dedicated to Kartikeya than Shiva. Shiva would be the main deity. But Kartikeya was given more importance, and all the inscriptions, though they mentioned about Shiva, they just say this, the name of the, like Eleshwaram, the temple name. Like that, they do mention about Shiva. No other inscription, no inscription gives any details of Shiva. But they do give details of Kumara or Kartikeya in every inscription. Why is it so? That was the person. The person what? The answer could be, let me complete this and go there. It is therefore increasingly becoming clear that the later Shatavahana rulers were inclined more towards Shiva worship and erected brick temples among the sacred rivers of southern Deccan. These temples were mostly square. Even the personal names of rulers were prefixed with names like Kumara, Sivaswati, Sivasri, Sivaskanda, and so on. Why could this have happened? Just after the fall of Mauryan Empire, these Shatavahana kings were the vassals of Mauryan. They started the new kingdom. To start a new kingdom and to establish it as a kingdom is very difficult. And they came right from Godavari up to Kaveri. They had their kingdom spread. So they had to have a lot of valor, courage that was needed. So, though the temples were meant for Lord Shiva, Kartikeya was more worshipped. In particular, every inscription of Shatavahanas calls him only Deva Senapati. Most of them. If suppose we find about 60 inscriptions of Shatavahanas about Shiva temple, nearly 50 of them speak about Deva Senapati. So, they were more interested in the valor and the courage of the Lord Muruga, which would have made them to erect big temples and mainly speak of Kumaraswamy. The other inscription which I would like to show you. There were temples. An excavation proves that a temple was dedicated to Kartikeya. I have given the plate numbers. They are from Epigraphica Antica, which was built by Chandashakti Kumara. And again, here this Chandashakti is a Tadbhava form of Skanda. Skanda becomes Skanda, and the card drops, and Chandashakti has become. The temple structure was comprised in an L-shaped pillared wing with a massive pedestal. In south of the temple, an over-pillared complex was found with enclosure walls, pedestal and head of Kartikeya. This is most important. There, according to the inscriptions and according to those plates, it is about 10 feet. The head is about 10 feet. And then we should imagine how big the sculpture would have been, because we don't get the full form now. And a single left hand is left. It's almost ruined, the temples are almost ruined, but a single hand is left. A left hand with 1.10 inches of fingers holding a Kukuta Dhwaja. These two are there. So we can say that it was devoted to Lord Muruga or Kartikeya. This is a particular king's coins, Vasishti Putra Pulomavi. His name is quite interesting, Pulomavi. Again here, the Shatavahanas had this name Pulomavi, a very common name for their kings. What is this Pulomavi goes as? Pulu, as you all know, is grass. Mavi, So, what is it? The Saravana Bhava, the actual Dravidian form of Saravana Bhava. Pulumavi is the actual Dravidian form of Saravana Bhava, the Shadakshari mantra, rather. In the morning I heard people, there was a talk like Kumara Namaha or Saravana Bhava, which is the Shadakshari mantra. Either you can say both or all that. Whether you chant this or that. A mantra, a word becomes mantra when you chant it many times. That's what our religion believes. And with wholeheartedly, if you chant a word, a mata is a word. Mata mantra mautundi. That's what we use it in Telugu. Like if you wholeheartedly chant a word, that becomes a mantra. Here, he says, we all know the story, so I'm not going through the story. The pulu is, in Telugu it is known as the relu, the grass, and the mavi, he says the the grass which has become the to protect a baby was Pulumami. So, the actual Sarvanabhava, the same thing is, Sarvanabhava means the same thing. So, according to me, I think this could have been the Dravidian root for the word Sarvanabhava. Okay, now I am switching over to Telugu literature. This is what I got from the Epigraphica. What interested me into looking into Epigraphica and finding out this is, forget about the disputes of the word Murugu, which Mairavata Mahadevan says and which we may agree, we may not agree, but we can think of one thing. The Kartikeya worship is as old as the Indus Valley civilization. This is sure for us. This we can agree. Because he says right from the Pasupati's times, as Ikshvakus and the Shatavahanas, as per historical evidences, they go up to 300 and 400 BC. Right since then, we can prove through their inscriptions that the Shiva worship, rather the Saivism in other forms of the other form of worship of Kartikeya and Kumaraswamy, which was a part of Saivism. So, since the 4th century BC, we have the worship of, call him either by the name of Kartikeya or by Kumaraswamy or by Murugan or whatever name we would like. But the worship was vogue since 400 BC. This is what I could get from this. So, apart from this, in Telugu literature is a different literature than many other literatures as such. Because, of course, they say, many people, say that Telugu literature has got a lot from Sanskrit. It doesn't have anything of its own. But every literature, for that matter, takes something from the other. That's for sure. And for every language, it is like that. But what I would like to focus here upon is only two things. The 11th century work, Kumara Sambhavam, by a Telugu royal poet Nanneshwara and a 13th century work, Andhra Mahabharata, a part of Andhra Mahabharata, Aranya Parva. Andhra Mahabharata in Telugu was written by 3 and the last was Erana. He took up Aranya Parva. He also writes about the birth of Kumaraswamy. These two books deal with the birth of Kumaraswamy and the Narakasura Vada. I would like to just bring out 3 points which these two books differ among. According to Kumara Sambhavam, Agni went to the Saptarshis place and he got attracted to the woman there, and except Arundhati, all other 6 Rishi Patnis were with him, and they became pregnant immediately. That was Sadyogarbha, and they gave birth to 6 babies, and they were put in Sarvanabhava, and they went together, and Kritikas nursed him, and that was the birth of Kumaraswamy. That is what Kumaraswamy says. But whereas when we come to Andhra Mahabharata, it gives a different story. It says, Agni was fascinated by the Saptarishis' wives, but Swaha, who was Agni's wife, took the form of the Rishi Patnis to satisfy him and to save him from the curse of the Brahmins. And thus she became pregnant 6 times, and that was the birth of Kumaraswamy. This is the one major change that we can find about. And the other was about the Indra who fought with Kumaraswamy. He, in both the books, he fought with Kumaraswamy, not knowing he was the Lord who was being created by Shiva to save Indra and his Swata. And the other one, the demon, the name of the demon changes here. In Kumarasambhavam, it is Mahishasura. It is Tarakasura in Kumarasambhavam. But when we come to Mahabharata, they say it is Mahishasura. That's a peculiar thing I found upon. That's why I would like to mention about this. Yeah. Andhra Mahabharata says that Kumaraswamy killed Mahishasura, not Tarakasura. So later on, we don't find any books of Kumaraswamy as such till the 17th century of Nayakas period, where the Tanjore and Mathura Nayakas took over, and in those places where the people were Tamilians and rulers were Telugu, there the poets took up Pariyanaya Kavyas, the marriage story of Valli and Devasani. After the 14th century, we find in Telugu literature, we find books on Murugan only in the 17th and 18th centuries. And of course, in present time, many are going for it. And the biggest difference between the Tamil Murugan culture and the Telugu is, one thing I would like to bring upon is the serpent worship. The Subramanya worship in Andhra Pradesh is always connected with the serpent worship. It is not in any of the temples, except in some Shiva temples you find Ganapati on one side and Skanda on the other side in the entrance of the Shiva. Any other temple, you don't have a special temple for Kartikeya or Muruga or Kumaraswamy as such in Andhra Pradesh, except one in Gudibanka in Chittoor district. But they say that is very close to Tamil Nadu, say around 24 kilometers away from Tamil Nadu. So it could have been an influence of Tamil Nadu. But it is not clear why there was such a big gap. In the period of Ikshvakus and Shatavahanas, say in 400 and 300 centuries BC, we had so many temples for Kumaraswamy, which of course we have only ruins now. But later on, some of the worship of Kartikeya and Kumaraswamy has become a part of serpent worship. This is mainly for progeny. If anybody in our, this is there even in Karnataka, if anybody has to pray for children, they would immediately go to a temple. If they don't have children for a consecutive period of time, they go to the temple, they erect a snake and they worship. A serpent worship is there, and they believe that serpent worship is Subramanya worship, that is called Subramanya worship, and with that they will immediately get children. This is practiced even in Andhra Pradesh even now. Still it is there. But this happens only in the temples of mother goddesses or Shiva temple. It doesn't have a particular temple for that. Yes sir, I am completing. So, as conclusions, the word Murugan would have undergone a semantic change. Okay, now I am not going to go for all that because it has been discussed. Further research can be taken upon the sculptures and temple architecture of Kartikeya in Andhra Pradesh, similarities and dissimilarities of literary texts comparatively with Sanskrit and Tamil can be taken up. And not last at the least, thank you one and all for listening.